Good afternoon to you. Mark Sott of HurricaneTrack.com here. Time for the Hurricane Outlook and discussion. It's Friday, the 16th of September, 2022. And today we're mostly going to be talking about tracking Fiona as it goes through the Caribbean this weekend. I know there's a lot of questions about where it ends up after that. Might be some answers already starting to come into a little bit clearer focus, but we still have a ways to go, and we got to get it through the Caribbean first, and that's where the first of the impacts will be. Plus, there's other stuff going on that I want to show you as well. All right, so let's get rid of me and go over to the National Hurricane Center site. Again, like yesterday, a couple of areas additional to Fiona down here, in addition to Fiona. Neither of these are really too much of a problem, even if they went to develop. No big deal, really. In the Eastern Pacific, we do have Lester. That's going to make landfall up here in southern Mexico soon. And then this other disturbance, which is well on its way to becoming a tropical depression, that might bring some impacts over here towards the Baja. We'll monitor that. And way out in the Pacific here, again, I love this storm panel sort of dashboard here that Dr. Cowan has set up over at Tropical Tidbits. We'll get to Fiona in a minute. Way out in the Western Pacific near Japan here, this is Super Typhoon Nanmadol, or however you pronounce it. Look at that pressure, 920 millibars, 130 knots, so it's 150 miles per hour. And that is, wow, that's what a well-developed tropical cyclone looks like. That's a super typhoon, as they call it, and that's going to be heading up towards Japan, and that's going to be a real big problem here. Probably multi-billion-dollar disaster coming. It's going to run potentially the length of the country and over several of these islands here, 3 of the 4 major islands. And that's going to be a big flood problem, a big wind and surge issue, huge waves, where it initially makes landfall in southern Japan. Man, oh man. So there you go. Good luck to those folks out there. I'm sure our internet friend, I've never met the gentleman, but James Reynolds, I'm sure he will do a fantastic job covering this in his adopted home country. So, yes, that's an interesting and unfortunate situation developing over there for our friends in Japan. Elsewhere, where's that? I guess it's not on here anymore. There's Moifa, or however you pronounce it. Let's just look at Lester real quick. That's off the coast here of Mexico. I'll show it to you in just a moment again on our track map. Here's some of the model guidance for it. Short-lived, going to move into southern Mexico, more of a rainmaker than anything else, but that still can be problematic. I know what I was going to show you. Let's see that other area of Invest, 94E, which is the original one. And then we had Lester that came out of 95E, but nevertheless, here we go. This is the next one. Maybe limited impacts to the Baja, maybe indirectly there. It's just been sort of discombobulated and kind of weird out in the East Pac as of late. All right, so there's Lester over there. Now let's focus on Fiona over here in the Caribbean, about to enter the Caribbean. This is from the 2 p.m. Intermediate Advisory. 1,005 on the air pressure recon has been in there almost constantly over the last day or so. Winds are about 50 miles per hour in some of the stronger thunderstorm activity. And as I'll show you on the satellite imagery in a moment, it's not very well organized still. It's battling some shear. Let's zoom in just a little bit more. Again, it's important to note it's not a small little dot. It's a much larger system than that. And it's going to spread all that squally weather across the Northeast Caribbean here, starting basically now, through tonight, through tomorrow, and into Sunday as it goes over towards Hispaniola. That is split into the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Haiti's on the western side. How much this interacts with Hispaniola as a whole is really going to help to dictate what happens post-Hispaniola, if that makes sense. And so there's just no way to know for sure. This is a pretty mountainous area through here. If it runs the length, if it tries to come in and kind of jump around, the GFS is trying to indicate that anyway. Hispaniola can do some weird things. And when they come in, I will say this, bring me on real quick. When you get a very strong hurricane running into Hispaniola, it typically rips that bottom part out. That low-level vorticity gets torn up, and disrupted by that rugged terrain down there, and it's hard for a strong hurricane to come back. It was already nice and strong because the atmosphere and the ocean were giving it that power, so to speak. Hispaniola takes it away. It's hard to get it back, but something fairly weak coming along, like Fiona, is already weak to begin with, and so as it moves north of there, if the atmosphere is primed for it to reach some kind of a maximum potential, it is going to do everything it can. Because remember, these are just processes in the atmosphere that take a while to develop, and they impact us, and so we are concerned about them. It is, just a fluid process in the atmosphere that's trying to reach whatever maximum potential it can based on the amount of energy that it can get out of the oceans. And the land there with Hispaniola can disrupt that, but if it disrupts what's already weak, it stays weak until it can start to, again, reach that maximum potential. And I think that's what Fiona is going to try to do. So we'll have to see how it interacts here with Hispaniola over the coming days. But first, let's not forget, it's going to bring impacts all through here. And again, that'll include squally weather. What does that mean? Well, these rain bands will come through. Maybe a burst of deep thunderstorms or convection that can create lightning, and that can be problematic. There's a lot of sailboats down here. The heavy rain itself, you name it. I mean, there's definitely going to be impacts. And then, of course, the possibility of some gusty winds. Now, we've got some cameras down here that are permanently affixed, if you will, from our supporters. This one's over at Carlos Place in San Juan. We have a pair of them now, thanks to our buddy Tim, Mr. Olive, there in St. Thomas. Give this a second to queue up off the Nest system. He set this one up today. We used to have this exact view, and then the camera, all that salt air down there eventually got to it. And he just replaced it today, so huge kudos and thanks to Tim for doing that. And then he's got one over at their shop. Oh, I got to do that. There we go. I figured red and black would be on or off, but that's fine. Here's the one down near where the cruise ships come in, and we'll be able to monitor these over the weekend. And in fact, we're going to put these on YouTube starting tomorrow. They will be live publicly, and you'll see it's going to be a nice little dashboard that we set up. And then over at Brent's Place in St. John, we also have a live camera there, and we'll be watching this as, or these, plural, all these cameras. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 down in this area, in the center of the storm, as you can see, should move through here. But it's not a tiny little dot. I keep saying that. And those rain bands are going to rotate through, and it's going to be very interesting to see, and we'll be able to monitor these. So a huge thanks to our supporters down there. That's part of the crowdfunding and the crowdsourcing of these amazing camera shots. Speaking of that, I have a little bit of a treat for you, a little bit of a surprise. You've heard about the remnants of that typhoon that are moving up into the Bering Sea, potentially bringing Alaska in the Nome area over here in Norton Sound. I got bailed out by the labeling. I didn't really know that off the top of my head, but it was right there, gift wrapped for me. But yeah, seriously, they're going to get a massive surge in here. That low pressure is moving up through the Bering Sea. And hey, look at that. We have a little camera icon over there at, what is that, St. Paul's Island, I think is what it's called. Well, let's click on it. St. Paul Island. We'll wait for this to pop up. This is extraordinary. Yes, we really have a camera there. I'm not making this up. Let's go full screen. You can see the wind just a little bit there. It's kind of flat and grassy. You can see the clouds moving. It's not facing any water, so we're not going to see that. How is this even possible? Well, it's from one of our longtime friends. His name is Tim, and he works up here. He's currently on vacation in Virginia, but that's his Nest Cam, and it's running on Starlink. I kid you not. So Elon Musk, $1 billion to 1 odds that he ever sees this video, we are using your Starlink system to do this. Tim Bruno is, and we really, really appreciate Tim sharing this with us. I've known Tim since he was just a wee lad way back in the early days of our project. You got to watch one of our old documentaries like Tracking the Hurricanes 2004. You'll see Tim as a youngster there. And now he's all grown up and he does work with the Weather Service, and he's got a camera sitting over here at St. Paul Island, Alaska, Not much happening. I realize that it's not real exciting there, which is a good thing. They don't want their building messed up. But yeah, up here, it is going to get nasty here over the coming hours. So I just wanted to show you guys that. I thought that was pretty special. And an amazing test of the Starlink system. We're going to learn a lot from this, and I'll be talking with Tim a lot over the coming months as we get ready for 2023 and what we might be able to do with Starlink going forward. You never know. So very cool. All right, here is the satellite animation of what's going on across a good deal of the Western Hemisphere. There's Lester somewhere in there. There is Fiona, kind of disheveled looking. Here's that one little impulse here off the Carolina coast. Really not a big problem at all. So let's zoom in, take a look at Fiona. Some interesting things happening. There is the low-level center of circulation, plain as day. That is it, heading towards the Butterfly Island, or we also call it Guadalupe. I believe this is Barbuda up here. And then you have St. Bart's and Anguilla up here in this area. St. Martin, there's St. Bart right there, I do believe, if I know my geography. And this is going to scooch on through here roughly like that. But that's the center. And in this case, yes, it is a little white oval or dot or whatever you want to call it, or black dot. Yeah, the center is kind of small, but the rest of the weather associated with it is much larger than that, as you can plainly see. And this is our thunderstorm areas, or these are our thunderstorm areas, plural. And notice, folks, this is important, at least in the short term. Now, in the next 48 hours, you've got these little blow-ups that come and then they go. They come up, they go down. And very key to this, so far, that convection, those thunderstorms, are not wrapping around the center. They blow up and then they kind of get pushed back. That's still happening, that pulsing action. And so Fiona is staying sort of in check right now. 50-mile-per-hour wind, mainly in those deeper thunderstorms that you see there. It's still decoupled a little bit because of stronger winds coming in generally from the west here, pushing those thunderstorms away from that low-level center. So it's getting sheared. That's why we call it that, at least one of the reasons anyway. And so this is going to be really important as this evolves, because the longer it stays that disheveled, the more chance it has to get a little bit farther to the west, and the computer models are going to have to wrestle with that. I know everybody's looked at the 12Z guidance, and they have all but written off any impacts to the United States. And while the consensus is in that direction now, I really think, like seriously, non-biased opinion, we have about 48 hours left of this sort of guessing game, because so much is going to depend on how much this energy right here, that's the vorticity signature, that is a great representation of that low-level swirl. In fact, let me just go back. This is a great teaching opportunity. That right there, take a good look at it. Everybody, let's look right there. That is that right there for all intents and purposes. Really cool to see that. Meteorology in action. That's the real world right there, and then this is what the computer model, and in this case the GFS, is simulating in its numeric weather prediction. It's all math and physics and codes and beyond me, but there it is. And so how this treks across the Northeast Caribbean and how much over Hispaniola this goes and interacts with that island, I said it before, I'll say it again, that is key to a lot of this. It's not everything, but it is certainly a lot. So let's put this into motion, frame by frame now, 12 hours out. This puts it there this evening, moving through. And it's interesting because the GFS, I think, is going to be too far north with its center of vorticity. There is Guadalupe right there. And if we go back to the current satellite picture, I mean, it might, well, we're only talking about a few miles. But it looks like it's going to pass maybe just north of Guadalupe, and then the GFS seems to have it a little bit more north than that. Again, we're just probably, there's no we, I'm the one doing this, but it just depends on where the model thinks the strongest vorticity is, which here is kind of north and east of the reality down there. Does it really matter? Probably not, just something interesting to look at. Anyway, It goes on through. This is tomorrow early in the morning, and then finally around sunrise or so, and then it treks on through, and you can see that vorticity, the energy there, pretty much right over Puerto Rico. So that camera that we have in San Juan, if the power stays on down there, it's a pretty fickle system, unfortunately. We'll be able to see what's happening right there in San Juan. Any areas where the wind is flowing right on shore and coming up and hitting those mountains and hills down there, we call that orographic lift. San Juan and areas like that, and of course the hilly terrain there, it could be pretty nasty in terms of some flash flood and urban flooding and river and small stream flooding. So all of our friends down in Puerto Rico, you know the drill. Rain is a substantial impact. And then, watch what happens. It approaches the Dominican Republic and then just kind of, oh, excuse me, sorry, and then heads on up to the north. I think this is absolutely critical here, what happens, because the less organized it is through these phases right here, in about a day's time frame, if it stays weaker, it's not going to be pulled north and feel any weakness that is sitting right in here. This little piece of energy, the overall weakness in the high pressure area, there's just enough of less resistance in the atmosphere. And another way to think of this, these height lines right here, if these were connected like this, and this little impulse wasn't there, this would probably just go along merrily into Hispaniola and over Haiti and be south of Cuba. But there is this little impulse right here, and that's created this weakness where there's less resistance to keep this in a low latitude, so it starts to turn. So, you know, there's a lot of ifs and whats and whatevers. This is about 54 hours out. We're going out into time. It dances around Dominican Republic like we showed, and then it heads on north from there. This is day 5, day 6, finally day 7, curving away from the United States. A fairly, I won't say it's too close a call for Bermuda, which is hidden right in here, but you're going to have to watch that. And this would certainly send some waves out. Yay for our surfer community. But, you know, you look at this at face value, exactly like it is, no, this is not a direct threat to the United States, and that certainly is good news. But is this what will actually happen? And if anybody says they know for certain that this is what's going to happen, just like they couldn't tell you that yesterday, where is it, that this was going to happen right here. You know, nobody knew that that was what was going to happen yesterday. That's the 18Z run. We're going to have to just wait and see, because again, I think that the time frame coming up here as this approaches the Dominican Republic, that's huge, because if it gets really wrecked and a lot of that energy just keeps going west, then it could change things, and it kind of misses the bus, so to speak, right here. That's the bus. It's got to catch that bus. And if it's not feeling it in the atmosphere, it could just go on west more. This bus leaves, the hole fills a little bit, and then it turns north later, and who knows what could happen. So, interesting times coming up. The first impacts, though, of course, are for our friends in the Caribbean. And just to wrap it up here real quick, the European shows a very similar fate overall, but a little bit more interaction, clearly, right over the Dominican Republic, across the central part before turning north, and then it jogs west a little bit of a delay, but then the inevitable comes finally at day 6 and 7. However, just to show you, day 7 on the GFS is considerably farther up into the Atlantic along the track spread, if you will. There's the GFS, faster than the Euro for what it's worth, but a similar result overall. All right, so, you know, we don't know what will happen after day 5 for sure, so I'm going to focus on, and I think our friends down in the islands would appreciate it, the impacts as Fiona tracks through the Northeast Caribbean this weekend, and we will just take things a day at a time. Again, I think the next 48 hours are going to be the key here, that we can either put it to rest that there's going to be impacts directly for the United States or not. I believe by the time we get to late Sunday or so, if not earlier, we're going to know, hopefully. I'm hopeful of that, because I know a lot of people are wondering. All right, let me get this online for you. As always, thanks for tuning in. I do appreciate it. Again, I am Mark Sudduth. This is Hurricane Track. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow morning.